Welcome back, everyone. It is 3 o'clock. This is our final session of the day. Reem is going to talk to us about assessments in Canvas. Carlos is going to moderate. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Carlos will get you the mic. I will continue to moderate the online portion, and we'll wrap up today. And again, hopefully see everyone back tomorrow for the faculty portion of the event.
Thank you, CJ. All right, guys, last session of the afternoon. Hang in there. We got this. We're almost there. And the good news about this session is that it'll intersect with a lot of the things that my colleagues had already talked about as far as like assignments and modules and how to create those or where to find these. So it should be a breeze. It's just we're going to look at technicalities, some little details of how to tweak things to make sure that your assessments are good to go for the year. All right, so the type of assessments that you can create through Canvas, there's a lot. You can do discussions, you can do assignments, or you can do quizzes. Today, we're gonna really focus on assignments, how that looks like, where to find those, how to add them in your modules, as well as quizzes and the types of quizzes that Canvas offers and how both of these types are different. It's kind of like the import export we looked at in copy course. They're both options for you, but they both have advantages and disadvantages. Well, same thing with new quizzes and classic quizzes. They also have advantages and disadvantages, or just different settings that maybe could be something worth to look at to see if it matches your preference or how your course is set up. So we're going to look into that in detail today. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at, very simple, is how to create an assignment. To do that, you're always going to do that through the assignment tab, and I'm just going to go ahead and demo how that looks like. So bear with me. All right, so into your course, making sure I am on my home screen. All right, so in the navigation bar tends to be all the things and all the tools that you're going to be using throughout the year, as you could already tell from all the trainings we had so far. So when it comes to assignments, you're going to go to the assignments link, and that is where you create all kinds of assignments. And I know assignments is a bit of a tricky label to it, because actually assignments encompass assignments, exams, group projects, discussions, all that can be done, right? Or not discussions, but like the exams, anything that's graded basically is done in this link or in this tab. So you can see with each of these categories, they are totaled to match your syllabus, because assignments, for example, are 40%, your exams are 20%, which doesn't make sense, but you know, for the sake of this example, we're going to roll with it. Group projects 20%. So you can see how everything is weighted based on what it is. So if we're creating an assignment, we're going to go to the assignment section, and this is where you create it, in this section. Now, if you create it in the exam section, it wouldn't make sense, because then the total of that assignment is going to be added to that 20%, and therefore it's going to mess up your grade book. So make sure that when you are creating the assignment, you're doing it under the right tab so that you're not messing up the weights and therefore not messing up the grade book. So in this scenario, we're going to go to the assignments, click this plus sign on the very right side. The plus sign always means you are creating, whether it's this plus sign on the top or this one, but I'm creating it right underneath assignments. I can do it through here, but this is going to create it just randomly, and I don't want it to be random. I want to make sure that I'm creating it under the correct category, under the correct weight. So you're going to name your assignment. So let's just call it test and give it a due date. These are just kind of the basic settings that we're going to specify out of 100. And then more options is the next step for this one. It'll take you to more of the details of this assignment. So the title, obviously we just did that. Any description, anything that you want to add to this assignment is added through this content-rich editor. And like you have already all seen pretty much from the other assignments, same thing. You can add texts, you can add links from here, whether it's an external link, course link, you can add pictures, images, again, whether it's course images or from outside. You can add media, documents. One thing that I like is to add something from your Google Drive, not just because of how easy it is and just because a lot of us use Google Drive, but also because it won't contribute to the storage. Remember, you have a 1 GB storage in Canvas. In Google Drive, you can pull as much as possible from there and it won't contribute to, well, it will, but it won't be as much storage as it would if you were to attach PDFs in here. PDFs tend to really like eat up the storage real fast. So just something to think about.
Sorry, Reem.
Yes.
Quick question from online. If you randomly create an assignment, like if you're experimenting right now, you can edit to move it to the correct group. And yes, you can move it to the correct group at any time. So in fact, Reem's going to cover that. So that's actually in the next couple of slides somewhere, but she will cover that. So Kristen, hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, and we can definitely demo that in a second. Thank you for that. So after you add your content here, then you're going to look at making sure the point system is correct. And here's also another way for you to make sure you're adding it in the right group category. So let's say you didn't, you created it in just like randomly like we did, and it wasn't in the right category. Well, here's also another chance for you to choose if you're like, oh, this assignment is a group project, so I'm just going to put it in the group project category. That weighs 10% to my gradebook. So this is also another area for you to specify which category are you adding it under. Is it going to be a point system that you're going to grade this assignment through? Is it a letter grade? Just make sure whatever it is that you're choosing, it is consistent with your syllabus and the grade book method that you have chosen when you set it up at the beginning of the semester. More settings, submission types, if it's a group assignment, if require peer review, or if it's just individual. The last part here is really, really important. And this is for accommodations specifically. So this part, you will clearly specify when you're wanting it to be visible for students, when it's due. Very straightforward. But the part that it's nice about it is if there's a student, say Reem needs more time and I want to have it a day extra, you're just going to go ahead and plus add and then find the name of that student. I'm not sure if I can find my name because I'm not a student. And then you would give me extra time. So let's say if it ends for everybody on the 15th, or we're opening it for everybody on the 14th, I want to give Reem an extra day than everyone else because I have accommodations. So this is really cool when it comes to accommodations. So something to consider when you are creating your assignment. Now I'm going to attempt to save. Probably there's going to be an error. Yep, there is an error. Let me see who's on here. Okay, well, okay, here we go, Martin. And I'm going to hit save. Okay, so we can go back to the assignments, see if we can locate this. This should be under group project because this is where I put it. Now, if you want to move it, you're like, oops, never mind, this is not under group project. I'm going to put it back to assignments. All you need to do is drag and just drop it right there and boom, it's under assignments. Now, as simple as that drag and drop was, just make sure that it's no longer in that 20% category. Now we're adding it to the 40% category. So just make sure we're aware of those weight totals so we're not messing up students' grades and we are having an accurate grade book.
Another question just came in online. Is there a way to save the accommodation groups? As an example, apply the 1.5 time to all of the exams.
Yes.
Great question, Catherine. Yes, there are 2 ways to create assessments. There's new quiz and classic quiz. Reem is going to show both later on. The new quiz option will allow you to carry accommodations throughout the entire semester. So you enter them once and they carry through. Classic quiz does not do that. They have to be set manually at each, when each quiz is given. Now there are positives and drawbacks for both quizzes. I won't steal Reem's thunder, but that will be covered later in the presentation. Great question.
Yes, really great question. And that's exactly why we're doing this assessment segment, because people tend to, I guess, want to know more about the different types of quizzes because they are different and both of them have advantages and disadvantages. And it's really good to know this so that you can choose what works best for you and for your students. All right, back to the presentation.
Another question, Reem, sorry.
Oh,
is each assignment automatically equally weighted within the group? Great question as well. So if you look at like the exam one that Reem has on the screen right now, 20% of the total. So we can see that, actually, if you cancel out of that one, sorry, we see test 1 is worth 100 points. The quiz test is worth 1 point, and then practice is worth 100, and then practice classic quiz is 10. So those are going to be scaled accordingly to match 20% of the grade. So the one that is worth 100 points is going to be worth more of that 20% than the 1% is, or than the 1 point is rather. You can run into issues if you have an assignment group with, say, only 2 assignments, and one of them has a point value of 100 and the other has a point value of 1 in that case. So let's say just the bottom 2 are in that assignment group. Then you're looking at those 2 assignments worth 20%, but one of them is worth significantly less of that percentage because it's only the 1 point as opposed to 100.
And because this is an example course, the points are wacky, so they won't make sense. But yes, really good question. Do you have another one popping up? Yes. So points within the group determine the weight.
So it's a follow-up. Yeah, the weight. So again, looking at that, like the exams, 20%. Then within that, they're going to be calculated based on the point value that has been given within that percentage. So everything's going to be configured within that 20% of that total. I'll find an article online and share it in the chat, and that explains a little bit more of how that breakdown occurs.
Yes, points within the group determine the weight. So yeah, also the weight is determined, you determine that based on your grade book and how you have it reflected in the syllabus, and you can edit that. So you just hit the edit button and you're like, oh, assignments is not 40%, it's 20% because my exams are supposed to be 40%, right? So you would do it, you would do it to reflect the syllabus. So that's why one of the, I don't know if y'all sat into the grade book. Sorry, let me do this real quick. The grade book, I guess, training. We talked about 7 steps, or I think, yeah, Sally had talked about this, 7 steps of creating or making sure your grade book is set up. And one of those things were to set up the weights of your group assignments. So that way it's already set up. That automatically is reflected in the grade book, and you don't have to worry about calculating that every time. Another way for you to do that is from here, if I understood the question correctly. And let me see. Yeah, you go to assignment group weights and you just adjust it all together at once.
I'm in the chat for those of you on Zoom. I'm going to share a link from Canvas that details exactly how the grade is calculated. There is a score there. You can follow along with the formula about how weighted grades are calculated, and that should give a little bit more in-depth information. They also give some specific examples in the link that I'm going to share.
All right, we went over all this. Let me go back. Actually, I'm sorry, I cut that short. Let's go back to the assignment, and I'm just gonna click a random one. So another thing that we're gonna look at is making sure the submission type is determined, whether it's a text entry, whether it's a website, media recording, student annotation, file uploads. Just make sure you are specifying this, because let's say if you didn't do file upload and it was text entry, then the assignment will have a content rich editor just like this one for students to turn in their assignment. If it's a file upload, then there are going to be more settings to make sure that students are uploading files to it. So that's why you want to make sure if it's a media recording, then there's going to be more settings to accommodate and to make sure that students have a slot kind of to upload their media recordings versus how it looks like if it's just a text entry. Attempts, you can make sure you do that. I think we covered everything here. But yeah, these are just the little settings that you would play around with based on what your assignment looks like and what's the outcome of the assignment. Okay, back to this. All right, so we talked about the accommodations, and this is, this is just a specific due date for that assignment. But when you hit that plus sign, then you can add more students with the certain accommodation that works best for them if they have extra time per se. All right, the next thing is once you create an assignment, and this is, I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth between my slideshow and the demo because I want to make sure y'all see how it looks like live. So once you go back, I'm going to go back to this assignment. Think of this as your place to build materials. You're building things, right? Like a job site where you're building, I don't know, you get your bricks, you get, your mortar, all that raw material. This is where it is. You're building it. It looks really rough, right? You have all your assignments, your exams, your group project. Now we want to make it more refined, more presentable for the students so that they're not overwhelmed with things. So the way you do that is through modules. This is students' best friend and your best friend, because it's just the place where it's a one-stop shop where they can see everything, but in a very organized manner, very straightforward. So let's say that assignment that I just created, I believe I called test, I want to put it under week 1. You would just click that plus sign. And as I mentioned, the plus sign is always your indicator that you can add things. And since I'm adding an assignment, filter through the options and click assignment and try to find that assignment. Obviously you can create one from here, but we already created one and mine is called test, and I'm just going to add it right here, and boom, it's added to the week 1 module. So all the creations happen in this course navigation on the left in these kind of links. Like if I'm creating discussions, it happens here. If you're creating assignments, it happens here. But at the very end of the day, we want to make sure that we're adding it to the modules for students to see in the right time or in the right, I guess, position. So if it's in week 1, well, we're adding it to week 1. All right. Any questions? We're good to go. Okay, we're now going to look at the favorite topic here, which is classic quizzes and new quizzes. So if anything, our recommendation and suggestion is always default to classic quizzes because it tends to be, I mean, it has everything. It's the basic line of quizzes. Professors tend to be more comfortable with it. But if you want to explore the new options that new quizzes have, then you're welcome to do that. The way for you to, a good indicator for you to choose which one to use is I created this diagram that goes through some of the factors that might help you determine which one to use. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but something that you want to think about would be, for example, duplicating quizzes. Like that one, you can't do that through classic quizzes. You can do it through new quizzes. Lockdown browser. Both are supported by lockdown browsers, and that's great because we all want lockdown browsers, right? To be used for our quizzes. One thing that I thought was important in this one was, and I think there was a question that was asked about this earlier, is when you want to add an accommodation with classic quizzes, if Ream needs an accommodation, I got to go to every single quiz and add accommodations to Ream for every single quiz manually. Now with new quizzes, it's awesome because you just need to add accommodations for Ream only once and it just carries through the entire year. She is good to go for the entire year. No matter you do 100 quizzes or 1 quiz, she has her accommodations already. But if it was the classic quiz, you have to do that manually every single time. So just something to think about. There's a lot of commonalities, so that's good. Shuffling questions, common thing. Interactive questions, classic quizzes does not have interactive questions, and that's kind of the main feature that new quizzes has, is that they created interactive questions like matching, drag and drop, those kind of things. So if you're into innovation and new things and you want to try something new, new quizzes is your best friend. Okay. Something to look at, and if y'all have this slideshow, you would have access to this as well. All right, so how to create a classic quiz. So there's actually 2 ways to do it. I'll go briefly in one of the ways, but the way this one is set up, so let's go to my course. I'm just gonna make sure I'm doing the right thing here. I went all the way. All right, so let me go to my course. All right, so there's 2 ways to do this. I guess a straightforward way would be through quizzes, and you would hit this plus sign on the very right side. You choose if it's a classic quiz or new quiz, and then you go from there. You just, classic quiz, and you just go from there with the edits. Another way for you to do that is through assignments, since we talked about how assignments tends to be the house of all kinds of things of assignments. And I know assignments is a broad term, but it encompasses quizzes as well. It encompasses quizzes. So in that I guess note, I'm going to go to, I don't have a quizzes section, but let's say my exams. I'm going to consider that because exams are basically done through quizzes. So you would go to the plus sign right here. And this time it's not an assignment. I'm not creating an assignment this time. Now I'm creating a quiz, right? Then you give it a name. I'm going to call it practice. I'm typing with one hand, so exam. So exams and quizzes are basically you're using the same tool because it's a graded assignment. That's really what it is. Give it a due date, random due date, and point system. And then you're going to go to more options exactly the same way you did with assignments. Same thing. That's what I like about Canvas. It's very consistent. It's not different for everything. It's pretty much similar. You give it a title. Same thing if you want to attach anything or add more details to this or instructions. You can determine here if it's a graded or ungraded assignment or quiz. I know some people, some professors like to have practice quizzes, especially at the beginning of the year. So this could be a way for you to familiarize your students with Canvas, especially if they're new to it. But nonetheless, obviously, in the most cases, it'll be graded quizzes. Assignment group, this is your second kind of spot to double check to make sure that you are putting it under the right assignment group. Is it really under exams, or are you like, oh, I messed up? This is actually supposed to be under assignments. In my case, it's definitely under exams because that's where I intended to put it. You can shuffle answers, give it a time limit, which typically is the case. Allow multiple attempts. Would you like to drop the lowest score? You can do that here as well. Let's see, what else can we do? Oh, you can also choose whether you would like to let students see their incorrect and correct answers. I know professors have a preference with this. Sometimes they allow me to see the correct answers immediately once upon submission. Sometimes they don't want us to see, or they don't want students to see that because then they'll tell their friends and then their friends are going to get hundreds. So it's up to you how you deem fit, but that's options that you have available for you. And you can even determine when students can't show or can't see the correct answers, which could be, for example, after this assignment is due for everyone, everybody, we are sure everyone submitted their assignment, then we can go ahead and allow everyone to then see their feedback, especially that feedback is important, right? So we don't want to completely abstain from giving students their feedback, but we can do it, or it's preferable after everybody turned in their assignment. And same thing, exactly same format as the assignments. You then determine what's the due date. And if there's somebody with accommodation, you would plus that add sign. You would click the add sign and put the student's name and what the extra time that they need for this assignment. And you would click the save button and it should save everything. Now, if you're ready to publish, you can hit the save and publish. If you're ready and you're like, I got everything done, or it's so last minute, you know, that this needs to go live, save and publish. That means students will also be able to see it. Hitting that save button means that it's not published. Students cannot see it, but it's there for you. It's going to be placed under that module ready for you to publish. Okay, so that's through, again, we did that through assignments. That's the one way for you to do it, or you can do it through quizzes, but maybe doing it through assignments would be your best bet because you want to make sure that it's under the correct group in terms of group weights. Okay, so it's reflected properly in the gradebook. So let me go back to our slideshow, see if there's anything I missed on here. So we talked about how to add it, point system, the name, the little details and the settings for each of those or for that quiz. And of course, the accommodations for that quiz or for those students. All right, yes, the other thing we needed to look at is creating questions, which is how can this be an assessment if there's no questions? So I'm gonna go back, and repetition is always awesome. So forgive me for doing this again. Okay, giving me the random date. Okay, we're doing this again just because we did not look at the questions. So once we hit save, let me make sure. Oh, let me go back, making sure I'm doing a quiz. Yep, that's what I did wrong.
While you're doing that, Reem, we have a question in the chat. How do we choose the option of classic versus new quizzes, or are they all now new quizzes by default? So I don't know if you want to cover that, or
How do I? What was the
how do you
question?
choose new versus classic when you start off to create a quiz?
When they start off to create the quiz, let me look at the question real quick. Oh, I see what they're saying. Gotcha, gotcha. Or are they all the new quizzes? So yes, it's so the default. Sorry that it took me a second to understand the question. The default when you're doing it within the assignments link is the classic quizzes, because that's the one that I feel like it's just the default. That's how it's been for the longest time. New quizzes is a really new feature. So if you really want to explore that, you have to kind of go and find that and really deliberately choose new quizzes. But for the most part, the default is classic quizzes. And I will go over how to create a new quiz and how to find that. But does that answer the question?
In the chat, I will also share there's a timeline and structure shared for new quizzes. Those of you that are coming from another LMS, new quizzes is, I don't know, a nice way to say it, a long-standing thorn in the side of Instructure, in that like 5 years ago, they were going to phase it in, and then they didn't. And then they said they were going to last year, and then now they're running them both side by side. So I will share a link in the chat that details some more information about that. But if you're coming from a new LMS, this is an ongoing issue with Instructure, and I will let you know more about that.
Okay, so finally we got our quiz set up properly. Now we can go to the questions tab that we forgot to do earlier. So this is very simple and straightforward. There's the plus new question, and this is where you would add your question. You choose the type of the question, if it's true or false, multiple choice, if it's fill in the blank, whatever the case may be. Let's say I'm going to go with multiple choice for this one. Put the answer over here. This is where you, sorry, the question, not the answer. This is where you put the question, and this is where you put your answers. So, you know, if my answers are just a cliche, I'm just gonna randomly put things here. All right, so I have 4 options, and the correct answer is where it shows the green arrow, you just click on it. So let's say if B is my correct answer, you're just gonna hit that arrow and it's going to turn green, and that means that that's your correct answer. And you can see those red boxes on the other options, and those are basically indicating that they're the incorrect answers. So that's how kind of you do that. Now you can also click on these and add feedback. So if it's an incorrect answer and you want to add feedback as to why it's incorrect, it's just like a standard, this is incorrect because this is how so-and-so is done. Obviously it's content related. You can do that. Same thing with the correct answer, give your students feedback, or it could be just something like good job. I don't know, however y'all want to do it. And then make sure you click that update question, and don't get blindsided by I guess the save button and just immediately hit save, because that won't save your progress on each question. So each question, you want to make sure to hit that update question button to save the progress on each question individually. And then once all that is done, then you can click the save button to save all of the quizzes, settings, and edits. So that's something I always have to remember when doing this, because it's very tricky. It's very small and it's at the very end. If you want to add another question in that plus sign again, add another question. And let me make sure. Oh, this was add another answer. I'm sorry. This is add another answer. But if you can delete it from the trash can right here. So that's too many. 5 options are too many. If you want to edit, you just hit that pencil button and do that. Now, if you want to add a question, in the very bottom, you have this same button that we had at the beginning, the plus new question button, and then you choose whatever option that is, and same process, making sure you choose the correct answer, and the rest are by default the false ones. Any questions on this? Yes, ma'am. Microphone.
So if you elect to choose the shuffle answers, you could put the correct answer in A all the time so that you had a systematic way of keeping track of which was the right answer as an instructor.
So if you're saying if we choose the shuffle answer in the details right here. What was the question again? Sorry.
Then I can put the correct answer as A every single time and just rely on the LMS to randomly do
Yes.
that.
Well, yes, you can definitely do that. Yeah, and it should shuffle it. That's something that
Do
you
we
can
know
do.
that it really does?
That is correct.
Great question.
In fact, if you might create a multiple choice there, I think it actually defaults to that option. Whilst I've created a multiple choice on a classic quiz, I'm sorry. Yes. Just make sure you do select that shuffle.
Did the Zoom people hear the question?
The opposite problem that I have seen is by default, the answer is the correct answer every time. So if you try to manually shuffle them, it will default to the first. Yes, you do exactly.
All right. Any questions, any other questions that we have on creating a classic quiz and anything that in regards to the details or the questions for it? All right, we can move to the next. And there are links on here that will go over step by step how to really do it in depth and what kind of settings, how does that look like, what options do you have, just in case you want to delve deeper into this. There's resources on the slideshow. All right, so now, did we already do this where we created, I can just do it real quick. So now that we created our quiz, we're gonna do the same thing as we did with the assignment. I feel like I've done it, but not sure, so I'm just gonna do it again. You're gonna go, oh, I did not do this. So you go to modules, so now I created my quiz. We're gonna assume I did, and we're gonna go to the module that I wanna drop it under. So let's say week 2. You're gonna, click on the plus sign, and then filter through quizzes because we just created a quiz and I need it to pull from the quiz area, right? And I'm going to choose a random quiz that I created and hit add item. So it just adds it right there. So what I'm really showing is how to create things in the place of creation where it's kind of all the work is done, and then how to then make sure you pull it back into modules in this refined format for students to see. Okay. All right, so here's some further exploration links for y'all to look at that we don't really have that much time to cover, but exploring each question type, how does that look like? Question banks also, that we're going to look at how new quizzes, for example, you have to label each question so that in the future, when you want to find those questions, how are you going to find them, right? But when you label them, let's say unit 1 questions, then you can be able to easily filter that. We'll look at that when we talk about new quizzes, but this is just further resources for you to delve deeper into all kinds of things when it comes to quizzes. All right, so a little 2-minute check and a little brain break, I guess, is to look at classic quizzes, kind of explore, see how that looks like, how to add a quiz, look at the types of questions that are available and the settings that are available for you to choose from. So yeah, we're going to give you 2 minutes. And if you have any questions, let us know.
And if anyone either on Zoom or here in person has any thoughts, if they have used new and classic quizzes before, what have been the positives of both, the drawbacks of both, anything you want to share, we would definitely be interested in hearing that as well from an instructor perspective. In question, Dale, because I knew you had some.
My biggest issue with the we'll call it new quiz type was the fact that I could not download the results. And so I've abandoned it totally until they fix that.
Thank you very much. Yes, the new quizzes currently do not allow you to download a CSV of the student results. That is on the roadmap to change, but as of now, it still has not. You can only view the analytics online. You cannot download them. So if you need a downloadable version, Classic is your best option.
We are ready to move forward.
So I will ask, when you talk about the new quiz format, will you go over the,
That would be in the detail, but I can briefly, if we have time, for sure go over it. But I do know that there's resources in this link that has it. But yes, that's one of the tricky questions. I definitely explored with it. And like I did a map and trying to I'm not using my microphone, but I don't think this is the Zoom people want to hear this. But yeah, I explored and kind of had to, you have to like accurately find it. I don't know, was that like the issue with you that you had trouble with? Yeah.
Yeah. For the Zoom, people on Zoom, the question is the hotspot question in new quizzes, will that be covered? And the answer was, as time allows, yes. And then using it for an interactive option in class, which is a great use of the hotspot question.
All right, we can go ahead and move forward to new quizzes. All right, so new quizzes, very similar to classic quizzes, a little different, but you know, the grand scheme of things, it's a quiz, right? So let's go to the course to see how that looks like or where to find it. So there was somebody that asked earlier and had said, when you create a quiz through assignments here, because we chose, I'm gonna go back and do that again so that y'all can see that. When you hit that plus sign, one of the filter options that you can create within the assignments hub was quiz. Doesn't label it if it's a classic quiz or new quiz. That's because the default quiz is classic quizzes. But then where do we find new quizzes? So that's where you need to go a little and kind of do your own research to find it, because it tends to be an extra tool that Canvas has provided. And like CJ had said, it's been there. There's a debate of whether we choose one of them should have been the default, but Canvas left both. Anyway, so you go to the quizzes in the left course navigation. This is the hub of all things when it comes to creation, content or content creation. You would go to the plus sign on the very right side. And this is where you can filter classic quizzes and new quizzes. So don't be confused. This is just another way for you to create classic quizzes here. This is another option for you if you want to do it here. We just suggest that we do it the way or the method that I showed you earlier, just because we want to make sure we're creating it right under that correct group weight. But this is just another option. So in this case, we're going to choose new quizzes, hit submit. It's going to take us to the world of new quizzes. Same thing as classic quizzes. You're going to add a name for it, for your quiz, choose a point system, and what assignment group am I going to want this to be under, right? Is it going to be just an assignment? Is it a quiz? Is it just a bonus, an extra, whatever it is, just make sure you have it under the right assignment group, because like we said, and I reiterated multiple times, those group weights are very important that you're paying attention to that, because it's all going to pour back into your grade book. You're displaying grade as point, percentage, all that fun stuff. And then the part where you're assigning the dates, really similar to classic quizzes, is what I'm telling you in this part. Now, where it becomes a little different, let's see if it allows me to move forward. It does not. Okay, so I'm just going to randomly type things in here. Is that build button? That build button is going to take you to, I guess, anytime now, to where you build your quiz, but I don't know what's happening today. So give it a second to refresh. We can try this again. So let's go back. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
If it doesn't work, it may be because you're in the incognito. I think my practice course is open there if you want to, if it doesn't work.
In a regular tab?
In a regular window, give it a shot. If it doesn't work this time, then jump over to my course. It's fine.
Okay, let's see.
Not.
Why do I feel like I might have closed it?
Okay. I thought it was in the other tab, but maybe I did close it at lunch. Right there, I think. No, that's yours. Sorry. I must have closed it at lunch. My apologies.
No, you're good. Maybe I did too. I'm not sure what happened. Okay, let's all pray and hope it works this time. So we're gonna hit the build. Oh, the name. All right, what I can do is I can just log in a regular tab. The other one, or I can just log into a regular tab. Okay. So sorry, bear with us. It just should take a few minutes real quick to log in. I think the internet is just slow. Oh, okay. I don't know whose course this is. Oh, CJ's course. Okay, we're gonna use it. So we're gonna go to nothing. Okay, where's your quizzes on here?
If you go to dashboard
Choose another course.
and then go to the one with Reveille, not that one. Sorry, that's the faculty course, the one next to it.
All right. So quizzes, this is good. This is good to repeat the steps just to make sure we got it. All right, hit that plus sign on the very right side. We're choosing new quizzes because that's what we're trying to explore here. Giving it a title, fix all the details here as far as point system. And we want to make sure we're doing it under quizzes. And we're going to hit that build button on the very right side and hope that it works this time. It did. All right, fantastic. So now it looks a little different, but I will say it's not really difficult. You can kind of tell from the plus sign that this is where you're adding. So the title of the test, you give it a better title than just test. If there's any instructions for the test, you do that. And then you can then start adding questions. So in that plus sign, I'm going to choose, let's say essay, and I give it a, and I think so. So there's two things. There's the question title. This is what I was talking about earlier. There's the question title, and then there's the actual prompt. This is where you actually write the question. The title with new quizzes, it wants you to title each question. Now it could be a simple title like Unit 1 questions. So that way, if you have multiple questions in this quiz and you label it all as Unit 1, let's say next semester you teach the same course and you want to create a Unit 1 quiz, you can just go to the Unit 1 quiz bank and pull all the questions from there. So it kind of, what it does, those titles really, it just categorizes all your questions and puts them into bundles kind of in an item bank. That way in the future, if you want to look for any questions, you can easily find them within those bundles versus having to scroll to millions of questions and try to find that one question. So, you can choose what option. So for this one, since it's an essay, you can choose if you want a rich content editor, spell check, show word count. It's going to look different based on whatever questions you're adding. So let's go. Can you see multiple choice? I'm just going to go with a very simple one. Actually, let me delete this. Okay, let's start over. Okay, here we go. So multiple choice, you're giving it a title. So let's say Unit 1, write this sentence stem and then your answer. So put a.
Reem, I think because you switch windows, it's on Zoom, they're not seeing anything.
Sorry for that. Okay, so we can go back.
Thank you to those who chimed in and let us know that.
Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. So this is the beauty of technology. Okay, so let's go back to, I'm not sure if this is going to take me back. Okay, so something that we looked at earlier was this. We already did this. And then I think the new thing that we did was hit the build button, which finally worked and took us to the new quizzes area. And you just give it you give your quiz a title, add instructions, and this little plus sign at the very in the center of that page is how you add questions. So once you click that, it'll show or review all the different question types. let's say I'm going to choose multiple choice question. What I was talking about earlier was the question title, and this is where the question title goes. So like unit 1 questions. That way it can store your questions or bundle them up so that later on when you're finding your questions, you're easily able to locate them. And then this is where you put your actual question stem, and here where you put your answer choices, and you just choose or select the correct answer. So this one right here is basically my correct answer. The rest are the incorrect answers. Within those trash cans, you can delete. If you just want 3 answer choices, you can add a feedback for that question through this little bubble, this messaging bubble. And then the point systems is edited at the very left side of that question. Another thing you can do is shuffle choices. You can do that per question. Obviously, if this is a numeric question, you would want to do the calculator, up to you. And then you choose the done button. Okay. It's definitely not going to save anything because I did nothing in here, but we're going to look at the settings. So play around with the settings. This is also something you can set for this quiz. So if you want to shuffle questions, shuffle answers, this is something you can do. Time limit. So let me click on time limit to show you what the new features look like. So if you want this quiz to be 1 hour, right? So that appears here. If you want to allow the calculator, you can do that. Basic scientific, which I think is really nice. Allow multiple attempts. Clearly, so each of these options, once you click on it, there's just going to be another drop down with more details so that you can specify exactly what that looks like. So multiple attempts, do we want highest, average, latest, the first attempt? Do we want unlimited attempt or limited? And then required time between attempts. I don't want you to immediately take them back to back. I want you to study. So maybe after an hour or something. And then restrict student results view is another option. So play around with this based on what you deem fit for your specific assignment. In the reports area, you can generate reports, student reports, and see how your students did for that quiz. This 4th option is the most important one. And this is where accommodations happen. And this is that one-time accommodation. This is where you just do it one time and it's set for the entire year or the entire semester, but only if you're using new quizzes. So if, and you can see these are my colleagues and I just played around with some of the items, but let's say, Sally, if I want to add accommodations for her, you can go to this pencil item right here, do a time adjustment. So if I want to give additional time, remove time limit, time multiplier, you can do that. And like I said, every option will give you just another drop down to be more specific as to how much additional time do I want to add to Sally or for Sally. And then you also have the moderate, pretty much similar thing as far as attempts goes, time adjustments. But once you do it, you just do it once here. You don't have to look back. Anytime you do a new quiz or you create a new quiz and you assign it for students, those accommodations should be set every single time for that student. I do see there's questions in the chat.
There are several questions in the chat. We'll just go from the top in order they were submitted. The first one is how to move a quiz to a module.
Okay.
I could move other assignments to modules, but was unable to do so with a quiz. So we'll demo that real quick. There are 3 questions, so we'll take those in the order that we receive them.
Okay, so let me go back. Here we go. I'm gonna go to the modules. All right, so let's find a quiz. So here's a quiz. So it should be a drag and drop, simple, and you should be able to move it. Regardless of whatever the material is, I guess, or you should be able to drag and drop it to whatever module you would like it to be in.
And hopefully that answers the question. I'm not sure if it was that or if it was how to add it into a module.
Sure.
Hopefully that answered, and then the 3 dots will also move it, as someone pointed out in the chat. The 3 dots can also be used to move it by selecting the 3 dots and move to, and then you can select the module and you can choose the place in the module you want to do it.
Yep.
Or you want to move to. That will also work.
That's correct.
So hopefully that addresses that question. The second question is, could we talk about in academic integrity and the best practices for academic integrity tools? I think the best option there enterprise-wise is Lockdown Browser, which we had mentioned briefly earlier, but certainly happy to talk a little bit more in depth about that if needed as well. That is the only enterprise-wide tool is Lockdown Browser, which will prevent students from opening a new tab. They take the assessment in the browser itself. There are others that are supported by individual colleges or departments, but Lockdown is the only one supported enterprise level. Then there's also Lockdown Monitor, which will record the students as they are taking the exam. And then the third question, where may need a little follow-up on this one, Kristen. So where was that under? I'm assuming you're talking about the accommodations. If not, let me know and we can address that. Yes, accommodations. So how to get back to the accommodations, if Reem, if you wouldn't mind demoing that.
Is that
And
for
then-
new quizzes?
In new quizzes, yes.
Yes.
And then there's a question associated with that as well. Do the accommodations set here apply to all assignments and to quizzes? They apply only to the new quizzes. Individual assignments have to be set differently. So let's say it's a paper that's submitted as opposed to a quiz, that would have to be set separately. But if they're turned on here, it will apply to all quizzes. And Lockdown Monitor is free and is able to be used in Canvas. It can be turned on with every assignment. We can demo that as well. Myra, and hopefully now Mira, hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. Please feel free to correct me. We can demo how to do that as well.
All right, so looking back at the new quizzes, there's this moderate tab at the very top. So this is where you do all things, I guess, settings. So here's where you build your questions. Settings is where you look at, all right, I want to shuffle questions. I want to give time limit. I want to allow students to do this multiple times. Reports is where you view reports for your students and your questions. And then moderate is where you would add the modifications.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Reem. Another question back to we have a follow-up. If you wouldn't mind showing how to get back to moderate again from the build screen.
From the build, yeah. So is this, so like how to go to moderate, like here?
Yes, and if that's not correct and I'm not addressing the correct question in the chat, please let me know that and we will.
Yeah, so it's all on the very top. It's just tabs. We're just flipping between the tabs based on the task that we're doing. So if building questions are from here, I know it looks a little different than how classic quizzes does, but I'm just switching between tabs within the same new quizzes kind of setting area. So once I choose new quizzes, it takes me to the main page where I'm just giving it a title. And then once I hit build, so maybe that's what you were asking. So let me go back.
Yeah, I think that, and again, Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong. It is all in the quiz creation screen, excuse me. The new quiz tool, without getting too technical, is basically a third-party tool that's operating through Canvas. So it is owned by Canvas, it's run through Canvas, but it has to operate outside of Canvas. So the way that you build it looks different. And because of that, everything is all on that one screen.
Not sure how many test quizzes are we going to build today, so I'm just gonna, CJ, I'm sorry, you might need to delete all those later. But did y'all see how the build at the very bottom? So once I created that, the name of the test, I just hit that build button at the very bottom. Let's see if I can look back to that. Here we go. And once I hit that button at the very bottom, and this is just really main settings. It's not really the detailed ones. This is just like the date for this, what's the name, which assignment group is this going to be under, and if the point system is going to be, you know, letter grade or just points. And then once you hit that build, this is where you get to a more detailed type of settings where we're going to look at what kind of questions are we going to add. Then we're going to look at if we want to shuffle questions or one question at a time, how it's basically going to be displayed for students, reports, and then that moderate at the very end.
Perfect. Thank you very much for demoing all that, Reem. The last one is the Lockdown Browser. If you wouldn't mind
Yes.
showing that real quick.
If I remember correctly how this is done. Which course is this? Is this the, I want to make sure that I'm staying on the same course.
That is which one is that? I have too many practice courses. I think it's that one.
This,
I think it's training course AI, but if you go to the dashboard, it's the one with Reveille, walking with core.
okay, way easier. All right, here we go. Okay, if I remember correctly, so actually, trying to remember if it was a setting within the quiz or is it through settings?
So if you go to, first thing, go to settings. And then
we drag it up.
so we have to go into navigation. We have to make sure lockdown browser is turned on. So that's appear on the top portion of the screen.
Yeah, it is.
If it's not there, you can drag and drop it from the bottom up to the top, or you can use the 3 dots and select enable. And then at the bottom of the screen, once you do that, make sure you select save. Can't tell you how many times I've done that and forgotten to hit save. And then if you go into lockdown browser,
which is, okay, here we go. Lockdown browser.
you can find the quiz that you want to use. And you can choose the little drop down arrow to the left side of that. And then you go to settings and you can choose if you want the lockdown browser for the exam, or if you want the proctoring option for respond as monitor, which is further down. So if you choose to require it, what do you want? Do you just want the basic lockdown browser, or do you want the full on monitoring option? And you can play around with the various options that are there and what you want to require of the students, and so on and so forth.
Thank you, CJ. All right, so that's from.
Thank you for demoing all that. Thanks to everybody who's dropped questions in
Absolutely.
the chat.
That's all the questions?
Yes, I believe that. I believe we've now addressed all the questions that are in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much for interacting and paying attention and focusing. I love that. Just because I know how important this topic is. So thank you for that. All right, we're gonna go back to, there's too many screens. I'm just trying to make sure I'm in the right one. I think this is it. Okay. So actually we have a few minutes to, we didn't have those minutes already, to look at new quizzes and play around with it. Maybe try to find the moderate tab to find how the type of questions there are on there. I guess we can play around with the hotspot, see if we can, do we have, how much time do we have? Let me see. Yeah, I mean, we do have time. It's not what you're looking for? Okay. Well, I can't tell you I'm kind of relieved because I don't like, I'm not a big, not an expert with the hotspot. I played around with it. I think it's cool, but yeah, I need to look at them a little bit more. All right, so I guess once you look around, if you have any questions, please pop those in the chat or just let us know if you're here in the room. And the final few things that we're going to look at today, and we're done for the day, is just to make sure we're enrolling in that Canvas Essentials. Anything we talked about today or in the new faculty orientation are all placed there, all that resources, links and videos, because I do know y'all have a lot on y'all's plate. It's too much. And so there are times we forget all those links that we're giving you. So it's all in that one-stop shop place for you to access for an entire year. So, and then the last thing is just reminders of our other programs, but I'm going to keep this for a second, just in case if you haven't done it, this is your last chance to get into the course. And finally, just a couple reminders of other things we have to offer if you'd like to see us again. DLE, well, Learning Expo tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of robust information from actually our very own faculty who had used Canvas and had successful experiences with it, to see how that looks like, I guess, in practice and what has been done with it in other courses. And then here are other sessions that we're offering this fall to look at some third-party tools and generative AI, which is, you know, something we have to address. We cannot hide from. And that is it for today. Thank you, everyone.